Hi guys. So this is Kendrick Kim. I just wanted to say thank you for all the new friendships and connections I've made in 2020. I certainly did make a lot of new connections, and I did lose a lot of connections. It's been an interesting year, and I tell you, today, September 21st, 2021, within 9 months, over 9 months of 2020, it certainly has been interesting. A lot of real estate professionals that I know, whom I assumed were professionals and friends, apparently were not friends, and it really certainly made me question my connections on Facebook, and I did a lot of cleaning on Facebook, and yet I gained a lot of new friends, especially a lot of the my Blasian sisters and brothers out there, and Koreans and other Asians that have similar mindsets with me. And I also appreciated the fact that my education from my new connections and their life experiences and their world viewpoint of what's going on in 2020. I was very disappointed with a lot of my old connections that I had, especially in the real estate industry, because the real estate industry is all about home ownership and fair and equal housing, and we're in this together for the clients, and we're here to serve, and the NAR code of ethics. But a lot of people seem to forget about fair housing and issues of redlining, and all of this stuff that was a part of systemic racism and institutional racism, right? Redlining means basically you're not going to give a loan in a certain neighborhood if it deems to be sort of like bad or dangerous or risky, which, in all honesty, they wouldn't give loans in the hood, right? What they thought was the hood, like Compton and all that stuff. And, 1968 Fair Housing Act kind of eliminated that and said, hey, you can't do that. It's discrimination, right? And think about it. That was 1968. And fast forward to 2020, the law and practice is certainly different. And I also learned that from the real estate profession and what it means to be realtors. I learned that the hard way, that the meaning of realtor to them is certainly different from mine in terms of values and ethics of fair housing, which is also acknowledging differences of consumers, differences of customers out there. But yet, a lot of these realtors, they like to say, you know, um, the virus came from China, so we're going to call it the Chinese flu. And, it's okay to say Kung flu because it's a joke, right? I'm constantly correcting that because the appropriate term is COVID 19. The medical terminology is COVID 19. Not Chinese virus, not Wuhan virus, none of that. And a lot of people seem to fail to understand that there's a lot of Asian communities, not just here in the United States, but abroad, outside of the United States, that are hurting, right? They're being victimized. They're being called the virus, and not just verbal attacks, but physical assaults. And it's not just here in the United States, it's all over globally. Because the weaponized word of calling the COVID 19 virus the Chinese virus, right? Um, and it's just mind-boggling that happens. And since the start of this pandemic, I remember March 13th, and I always say March 13th because that was the news that said we're not going to be in school face to face, we're going to be online. So a lot of instructors and professors actually had to try to learn how to teach online, and we took 2 weeks off to train for that. And still, in all honesty, I think I botched it, right? Because I never taught online before, and I'm still learning. And then, all this news and information about Asian folks being victimized and being called the virus, and, real live videos and news feeds about, people being attacked, specifically Asians, because they're thinking that people thought that they're the virus. Fast forward to May 25th, George Floyd, live death on television, execution by the police officers in that case. And it's just like everything went to hell. And it brought up a lot of anger, and it brought up a lot of hurt, about what black people go through, and at the same time about police brutality that's been going on for years and years and years. It's in our history, right? And then, Black Lives Matter movement's been around since all these police brutalities against black people, like Trayvon Martin, right? The guy got scot-free, right? The killer of Trayvon Martin, Breonna Taylor. We also have, I forgot Eric Garner, 2009, right? January 2009 in Northern California, the police shot him in the back. And all those histories. And, I'm going to be honest with you, I didn't really pay attention to all of those because it didn't affect me personally. And, I did feel bad for that, but it didn't affect me personally. And I should have been more attuned to all those issues and, not dismiss, that feeling of anger, right? And the attitude of if you behave and you'll be okay. That's been something that I've been trying to do. Behave, be the good Asian, right? Be the good Asian, and everything will be okay. And that's something that I can no longer do either because you know what? Whether you're a good Asian or a bad Asian or whatever you want to call me, it's not working in 2020, right? People that are speaking deliberately in English because they don't want to be mistaken for Chinese, that's not right, right? And we can't, I heard a Vietnamese grandmother actually said, I'm not Chinese, so this is not my problem. I'm Vietnamese, and why are you messing with my restaurant? That's not cool either. We need to be unified in all of these issues, and I also think that we need to stop normalizing anti-Asian behavior. We have to stop normalizing anti-blackness. And let's just be real. Have the guts to say if you don't like black people, just say you don't like black people. You don't have to kind of like come at with statistics and all this black on black crime. Or, what about the Asians? They're doing well. What about, so why can't black people get their act together? Don't use us as a prop for the model minority myth, right? That just causes more anger and division between Asian communities and black communities, which you guys know that you do this, right? And, Trump supporters out there that are constantly saying that Trump is the best president and he's going to change, make America great again. And my concern is, make America great again. Does that mean going back to the 1950s before the Civil Rights Movement and before the Civil Rights Act of 1968, where we minorities were able to have the equal access according to law, right? And remember, the law and practice of that law is two different stories, right? For women, and women of color especially, since RBD, right, RBG, Ruth Bader Ginsburg died, it's been really in my heart and sad, and I feel like women are in danger, and women of color are in danger. I feel like The Handmaid's Tale is going to happen. I'm not trying to be a conspiracy theorist. I'm not trying to be like one of those Alex Jones folks, but I feel like it's going to be like The Handmaid's Tale, or it's getting there. Right? And to all my new, Asian brothers and Blasian brothers and sisters out there, all the adoptees that I've met through Facebook and social media, all my new connections, I truly do care for you. And I like what you post, and I like your energy. It's awesome. And to all my African-American brothers and sisters out there that I've met and newly connect because of our same belief, even if it's just that statement of Black Lives Matter, and I'm not afraid to say it, I appreciate all of you too. My Spanish-speaking brothers and sisters out there, all my new connections that, we have that same mindset or belief of equality and justice. I appreciate you, right? I'm a 43-year-old man who has been living really much under the rug, so to speak, where, if I do good, no one will bother me. And if people bother me, like call me the gook, the chink, go back to your country, all that stuff, I heard it all, and I've ignored it, and I was taught by my mother just to ignore it and show it by action, right? But my mother and I, we also realized that in 2020, that it's not like ignore and show it by action anymore. No matter what we do as Asian Americans, as people of color, we're going to be attacked, right? We're going to be invalidated and say, no, that's not real. Racism isn't real. Or, you know what, Kung Flu, that's just a word. It's a joke. Get over it, right? And believe me, I've had many real estate agents and professional colleagues that I thought were colleagues that would write on my Facebook wall that same very statement, right? Or, fake news, stop being a little bitch, Kendrick, because those are just words. Man up. Stop being a snowflake liberal. And I'm thinking, you're gonna try to serve Asian communities as a real estate professional with everything that you have in your thought. I had one real estate agent actually called me a Marxist communist person because I'm anti-racist. I don't want to be racism, so I'm anti-racist. And I said I didn't know that was Marxism. And this guy called me a communist for believing that. So I said, okay, I guess I'm a communist because I believe you shouldn't be racist to anybody. And if you're a real estate professional and you're going to treat the community, you better understand that. Otherwise, don't serve the community. And, I fought back and I actually said, you know what? You're on my list of realtors not to do business with. And I'm going to send that to many Asian nonprofits and communities because you're not safe. And then all of a sudden, those comments on my wall disappeared. And I kind of wondered, where did it all go? So you care about the finances and economics. You're willing to take Asian money. You're willing to take black money. You're willing to take brown money. But you think that we are lower than Earth, the scum of the earth, so to speak. And you tell us to go back to your country. So I don't know. 2020 has really awakened my idea of who I am as a person and what my status is in this country. Because my face is Asian, I'm not welcomed, right? Either I go with the Trump vote or go back to your country. And I'm not for that. I'm not for that. I'm into LGBTQ rights. I believe in LGBTQ rights. I've always have. I always believe that there should be equitable treatment and equality for all. Equal access. I also believe in fair housing. I also believe that we should help the poor with affordable housing, right? What's the point in trying to, build up mega malls when mega malls aren't working in our society, right? No one's going to the mall and shop. Everyone's going online. So if you look at economic trends from an economic standpoint, if people are shopping online, then why don't you convert all those mega malls across the United States that are not doing business anyway or they're closing down? Convert that into affordable housing. Solve your problem in terms of, the housing shortage or the supply shortage of housing. Build it up. Why don't you build more mental health facilities and, social work programs, right? That's what defund the police means. There's been arguments about defunding the police means that the police won't be there, they won't have resources. And I'm thinking, the police aren't trained to, handle mental illness. The Thomas case in 2014 in Fullerton, downtown, the Fullerton PD, dealt with a guy named Thomas. That was his last name, I believe. And they shot him in the back because they couldn't handle this mental illness. And his father, who was a former cop, said this is not right. Right? And that case is still pending. I don't know if they settled yet. But Fullerton Police Department is an example. And many police departments out there that shouldn't do health checks, shouldn't deal with mental illness, shouldn't deal with social work and child abuse problems, and they should certainly not deal with stupid Florida laws that about pull your pants up type rules, right? The main job of the police department, especially if you're a street cop, right? You're in the streets, you're fighting crime, you should be dealing mostly with that crime, right? You shouldn't be dealing with mental health checks and social work problems and you got called because a cat's in a tree. That's not your job either, right? So defunding the police is putting more resources into mental health worker programs, mental institutions that are out there to help the mentally ill, education, resources for the homeless, more fair housing and affordable housing, and maybe even group homes for drug addiction recovery. Why not? Why not? Because, most of the crimes and criminals that are in jail or prison is for drug crimes. About 70% of the people that are in that prison population or jail population are drug offense or drug-related offenses. And they have addiction or mental problems, right? And then you expect the county jails and the prison system to handle the mental health care issues like the mental drugs and all that other stuff. It's costing more taxpayer dollars going through the prison system than it is just to kind of spend it in the budget for the mental health institutions. Something to consider, right? And this is also a year that I find that it's about facts over feelings. And I kind of wonder, when you say facts over feelings, is it the Trump facts over feelings, or is it science and critical thinking and real credible research facts over feelings, right? People politicize everything from wearing a mask to not wearing a mask. I don't know how that happened. I really don't. I don't know what this country or world is coming through. I feel like since the pandemic, I feel like I've been in the Avengers Infinity War and Endgame. And I've become Fat Thor, where I just don't want to talk about 2020, right? I really have. And I've been posting funny memes back in the early start of this stay-at-home order of Fat Thor, because that's how I feel, and that's how I feel now, right? I feel like I'm just rather eat, ignore the world, but I can't, right? It's all over the place. And just for my mental health, I'm making this a live video because all my new Facebook friends out there, I really do appreciate you. I like what you post. I like the energy that you just share this information and spread awareness. It's important to vote this coming November. It's not just for the presidency, it's also for the Supreme Court. I mean, we don't want women's rights to all of a sudden disappear, right? That's like the empire of Star Wars coming back. And then we're going to have rebels, right, in the Return of the Jedi and just fight that empire. We don't want that battle, right? If you're into comic books or you're a comic book nerd, right, remember X-Men? X-Men and Professor X is about a group that fights for justice and equality, where mutants were not treated with respect or equality, right? If you say that you're a Trump supporter and you're like, if you don't like this country, go back, and you believe in QAnon, then you're really not into Stan Lee and Marvel Comics or any of that pop culture references. You're really part of the Darth Vader and the dark side, and you're a Thanos. Let's just be real, right? Don't pretend to be Captain America when you're really Captain, Red Skull. Don't do that. And that's the only way I could, kind of communicate to the comic book nerds out there, because I'm one of those comic book nerds. And I know I'm rambling on. I got so much to say. I didn't even say I'm going to practice what I'm going to say before I come on live, because I just wanted to say what's in my mind and my heart, right? And I've been noticing about a lot of trans rights and LGBTQ rights started disappearing a little bit slowly, right? It's scary. It's a scary time. I see Trump flags and their Trump trucks all the way in the South and Midwest, and I'm thinking, that's in Huntington Beach too. I see it. Huntington Beach, California. And by the way, Huntington Beach, California, whether you want to believe it or not, they still have skinheads that come out of the woodworks. But because of Trump, maybe Trump didn't start racism, or, racism was just all of a sudden appeared because of him. We can't blame Trump for that, because racism was always there. And as Will Smith had said in his quote, that, racism didn't disappear, we're just recording it now, right? But they're brave. Proud Boys, right? The alt-right. And then Candace Owens and all these other folks that are coming on like TikTok and social media trying to spread the word of Trump. And it makes me think, what happened to the Republicans of yesteryear, right? At least with the Republicans and conservatives of yesteryear before 2016 and the election, there was conversation, there was evidence-based conversation, and not only that, the Republicans and conservatives and libertarians of yesteryear meaning before the 2016 elections and before 2016 were and up after Trump got rid of all these Republicans, some people like John McCain who passed away and all those other folks, they had intelligent conversations. Maybe they had different points of view, but they always cited credible resources. No one, and this is the first time I've ever seen this, where Trump supporters would cite QAnon, or they would say Ben Shapiro, right? Or Charlie Cook, or Kirk. Sorry, Charlie Kirk, Rebel, or what are any of those really right wing, you know, right wing websites that are perpetuating Alex Jones, basically, right? If you don't know who Alex Jones is, Google Alex Jones. He's the one that said 9/11 was actors. It never really happened. That same Alex Jones has said that the Sandy Hook shooting, right, in 2012, it's all fake. The parents are actors, the children are not dead. Remember that, Alex Jones. And you are following QAnon and those type of conspiracy theorists that are putting out misinformation out there for you guys to make BLM, Black Lives Matter, a terrorist group when it's not. Yet KKK, neo-Nazi, Proud Boys are still not on the terrorist watch group list, right? No one's giving that same energy to say, let's fight the neo-Nazis, let's go after the Proud Boys, you know? Especially those folks that say that, you know, they're not racist, but have these like pickup trucks putting up their Trump flag, Confederate flag, and saying white lives matter across this country. I'm seeing neo-Nazism, and I'm seeing Nazi Germany in 2020, but in the United States. And it's scary. I want everyone out there to always stand up for each other. Whether you're just Facebook friends and you're a distance away, check up on each other. Make sure everything's okay with them and their family, right? And my advice really is, if you're anyone that's person of color, whether you're Asian, whether you're black, whether you're Spanish-speaking, brown, Chicano, Hispanic, Latinx, however you identify, if you're LGBT, trans, whatever it is, do not go outside alone. I really mean that. I would say go in a big group in packs and protect each other when you're out there. Even for the simplest thing as going to the post office, picking up groceries for your elderly friends or elderly family members. Because I do not trust society as it is now. I do not trust the people that flip over not wearing a mask and want to start something because they don't want to wear a mask, and bring it into this, you know, worker that's just trying to do their job, this fake little piece of paper saying that it's illegal to authorize me to wear a mask and blah blah blah, where businesses actually have to put signs, no mask, no entry, right? It's crazy. It's getting more worse. And then you got people at Huntington Beach gathering in millions and thousands, you know, just wanting to like protest or do what their thing is. And that's fine. You know, protests should be peaceful, but at least wear a mask, right? I mean, people will say, what about BLM and Black Lives Matter? All the protesters I saw at BLM rallies were wearing masks, you know, and a lot of health professionals were out there giving masks and making sure everyone's healthy. And if anything happens, they have water, right? But no, these neo-Nazi rallies, there's no mask. They're all coming in, yelling, bringing their guns, and no one's taking offense to that, but they're taking offense to people that kneel down and say Black Lives Matter, and we need to change the system within the United States, especially change the culture of our police, right? No one wants to talk about that, and no one wants to say that there is police corruption and that needs to change. The police unions have to change, right? They have a lot of power. Just because they're out of one department doesn't mean that they're going to be doesn't mean that they're fired. They just get transferred to a different department, different area. Same police, recycled. It's scary. Be careful. I mean, even the recent events in Southern California, such as, you know, Manhattan Beach, Torrance area, over the summer and past couple weeks, right? People just jog in, and then there's a lot of Karens and Darrens making false claims against black people, like we were attacked or this and that. Luckily, people are recording this and making known that they're making false police calls, right? You know, Newport Beach, some random professional, so to speak, who works for Prudential goes up to a group of Asian women who are minding their own business and calling them the Wuhan virus and go back to Wuhan. That's open, right? This isn't like they were arguing or everything. It's just random, right? So I seriously think that if you're gonna go out to any restaurant, go as a family, go as a group, And I also think if you're going to go to the store to get something, go as a family, go as a group. Make sure you have at least one person next to you, to keep everyone safe. And if you got elderly folks out there, you know, make sure that they get some groceries, and maybe even make sure that you make the time to get groceries for them. Or if the neighbor's able and willing, pay them to get groceries while you're not there, and then check up on your grandma, grandpa. Right? Everyone seems to forget grandma and grandpa, and to say, I'm not wearing a mask for my freedom because it's I don't want anybody to restrict my freedom. Well, what about grandma and grandpa? Do you care about grandma and grandpa? You talk about all lives matter, but you don't care about the senior citizens who may be scared and want you to put on a mask. I'm just saying, it just it's a maybe a controversial thought. And for all those real estate agents that are watching me, and you think I'm talking smack on you, and you feel guilty, then yeah, that's probably you, right? Because you have no business serving any community if you're going to call that community a virus. Or you make jokes on Facebook calling them the Ching Chong virus, Asian virus, and Kung Flu. And you're brave enough to leave your words on the comment section, but then you're scared and a coward when you delete it when I put that comment on my Facebook. And I talk to your broker, right? So, I don't know. I'm being a little more vigilant. Maybe I'm being extra. Maybe I am being a bitch, but that's fine. I'm not going to take this anti-Asian behavior anymore. You guys that were racist towards me and made me awaken because of what you did. So you have yourself to blame, right? Calling me the Chinese virus, calling my family the Chinese virus, making fun of Asian folks, and making horrible comments to victims of Asian folks, and you call yourself a realtor, right? And then you have the gall to say all lives matter, and then you twist it and say, well, maybe you misunderstood. Then you say, well, all lives matter because all lives matter. And then I said, what about Asian lives then? Because, I don't see you jumping up and down for a lot of Asian victims out there, right? So, I don't know. I know I'm ranting, but it's something I've been wanting to say, and I don't say this out of meanness, but I say this out of vigilance. You guys all need to stand up together, and you guys all need to record and watch each other's backs and call out the stupidity of racism and call out the random Karens and Darrens who should be just minding their own business but coming at you, right? It only happened to me once when someone told me to go back to my country, and it happened before the pandemic, and I thought, well, you know what, that's nothing new. South Orange County has always been jackass people like that. But, it's getting exponentially, it's just exponentially growing that anti-Asian behavior. It's exponentially growing that racism against people of color. And, the police brutality that's been going on. It's just more video exposed on live TV now. And police don't seem to care about that. And people are saying blue lives matter. Yeah, blue lives matter. Okay, I get that. But, are you going to say that black lives matter? And are you going to say that police corruption is bad, police brutality is bad? Not one blue lives matter had responded to me and said, you know what, I agree with you, Kendrick. Police brutality is wrong. I am against police brutality, right? All I see is when people say blue lives matter, they don't care whether there's police brutality or not. And when people don't recognize their privilege, it's amazing. You know when I recognize my privilege? I'll tell you. In 2018, when that whole Starbucks incident in Philadelphia about two black men sitting down minding their own business in Starbucks, and then the police were called on them, and then this BS about a Starbucks policy of you got to purchase something so that before you could use the bathroom crap came out. It got me thinking of all my years in Cerritos, California, Southern California area, all my years, and I'm thinking, you know what? Even as a kid, I used up all the resources, free water, sat there playing Dungeons and Dragons, just hung out, and no one called the police on me. Even as a college student, I went to every other Starbucks imaginable, and I sat there, asked for a cup of water, used the computer, used up their Wi-Fi, used the bathroom and got without any problems, and no one called the police on me, right? No one has ever called the police on me just for driving, just for standing, just for looking the way I look, right? That's privilege. It's not just about white privilege. It's about privilege that I have as a person, such as myself, who happens to be of Asian American descent, who happens to be Korean, right? And I've been getting a lot of Korean folks out on me, on my Facebook and on my text messages saying, you remember 1992? Remember what they did to our Korean community in LA and all that stuff? And I straight up told them, well, do you remember what we did to treat them that way? Right? We followed them around the store because we thought they were going to steal. Let's just be real and honest. We thought they were going to steal all the time. We didn't treat them with respect, right? And if we ever did treat them respect, they didn't see that as respect. Here's an example. In many Korean cultures, right? In Korean culture in general, when you hand, especially in business, when you hand someone their change, you slide the change. You never put the change in their hand because it's a sign of disrespect if you put a change in a customer's hand, right? Now, black people, what they saw was, you don't want to touch my hand because I'm black, right? And I don't blame them for thinking that, because if you got the Korean liquor store owners following them around like they're going to steal something, and then when they buy something and you don't give them change in their hand, of course they're going to think that. And after the burning of Koreatown in LA, it started April 29th, 1992. That is the anniversary. April 29th, 1992. African American communities and Korean American communities, the leaders came together and had a full on discussion of what happened. How can we heal? Let's try to acknowledge this, right? And there's a lot of misunderstandings and understandings that came out of it, but we still need to work on that, because a lot of Korean people still remember April 29th, 1992, South Korea. It felt like, the Koreatown in LA is being burnt down, and these hoodlums, right? But you also have to remember that you treated them like crap. You followed them around the liquor store, you basically treated them like inhumans. And then when the police officers and all these people didn't come to Koreatown and they only protected Beverly Hills, then all of a sudden you feel like, oh, okay, now I kind of understand, right? And let's be real, you in Korean people, we talk shit in Korean about other races, right? And I hear that a lot, and I stare at them and say, can you stop? Let's just be honest with that, right? And the funny thing is, when people look at me and they don't think I'm Korean, because I've had that same experience, at one point I was literally 350 pounds, believe it or not. I know I'm fat now. I'm still a fat ass right now. I admit that. But I was once 350 pounds, hitting for almost 400 pounds. I was at a liquor store, and this, followed me around like I was going to steal something. And I had a bunch of, fried chicharrones and all this stuff in my hand. And this guy was following me around like I was going to steal something. And I knew, okay, this is how black people felt, because you're following me around in the store. The liquor store owner only eased up when I started speaking to him in Korean. Then it was like, oh, okay, right? See, when you guys pull that crap and stunt, of course there's going to be hatred and anger towards us, right? So let's just be honest with ourselves. Let's be real, okay? So Koreans out there that are still hurt and angry about 1992, maybe reflect what happened in 1992 and what came out of it. How the community leaders came to try to build understanding, right? And I've been hearing quotes on Facebook, protesting shouldn't be leading to looting, just like arresting shouldn't be leading to murder. That is a statement of fact, right? Protesting should not be leading to looting and violence, but at the same token, arresting should not be leading to murder. Whoever came up with that quote, whoever came up with that quote, that was a statement of fact, and it's beautiful. All right. Um, I hope that this year in 2020, when 2020 is over, I hope in 2021 we learn from that lesson in 2020, because 2020 had the reminiscence of 1918 Spanish flu pandemic that we never even lived through, but we understand what a pandemic is now through the coronavirus, the COVID 19. Again, COVID 19, coronavirus, the proper term for what we're going through, right? COVID 19, pandemic, COVID 19. Um, I think a lot of businesses will probably learn how to adapt and what to expect and plan for any emergencies that may happen. Um, I also hope that we, as a society, learn and grow that, okay, there's a lot of hurtful things and maybe experiences that we ignore. Maybe let's try to learn from that experience and have empathy and not invalidate or gaslight or cancel the individual for expressing that. Um, Maybe also understand that, LGBTQ people are human beings and they deserve as much respect as anybody else in this country. Maybe also understand to respect pronouns, right? If the individual wants to be called a pronoun as he or him or they, just respect it. Nothing to fight about. If a black person tells you it's racist, learn from it and change it. If an Asian person tells you you shouldn't call an Asian person Oriental because that has some derogatory meaning. If you're from that older generation, you should still have the ability to learn and say, "Oh, okay, you know what? I won't say that again." Right? Simple, no arguments. I think the world will be a better place. Um, I don't know. I just I'm sorry for ranting. I this was in my heart, and I just needed to say it. I just needed to say it, and yeah. Um, Also, one last thing. I am an LGBTQ supporter and an ally, and I don't have any masculinity issues or masculinity frailty. So, you know, um, for those jerks that keep calling me a bitch like it's supposed to hurt me, or stop being a simp, which I just finally learned what simp means. Um, you could go ahead and keep calling me that. It doesn't bother me. I don't know why people try to use those derogatory terms and words to try to put me down. It's not going to do anything for me. The only thing that you could ever get a rise out of me is if you go after my friends on Facebook, or if you try to go after my family. That's when the peaceful Kendra Kim is out the window, right? And some of you on Facebook, realtors out there, you know who you are, have said something to the effect that you want to come at me physically and my family. And I told you, come at me. And then you deleted that comment because you probably remembered that that was probably a direct threat and you probably shouldn't have that on Facebook. And if you work for Keller Williams or, First Team or Remax, those type of companies, it might not look good for your company. So you probably took it down, and you did, rightfully so. And I didn't capture it, but if I had, that would be my evidence, right? Anyways, I'm off my soapbox, but I love you all, and stand up for each other. If you see something, say something. Speak for the injustice, right, out there. Speak for the weak ones. If you're a Christian, right, you want to talk about Christianity, Black Lives Matter. Look at Luke 15. One of my Christian colleagues actually told me Luke 15. I don't know the exact verse, but if you summarize it, Jesus had 99 sheep. The shepherd had 99 sheep. The shepherd went after that one sheep that was lost, right? Because that one sheep was in danger. Black people are in danger. Black Lives Matter. It's simple. All right, I'm off my soapbox. Have a good night.